friends, I have another story for you. We've had so many stories and it's getting so close to Christmas. My goodness. Today we're going to read, dun dun dun, Merry Christmas, Curious George. There is some fascinating information about Curious George. One of the things that I love is that, I think is so fascinating, is he was still in manuscript form. That means he hadn't been published yet. They were still working on it. They're a married couple, and they were living in France, and their country was being invaded by the Germans, and so they made homemade bikes. Yes, made bicycles, and rode off into safety. And they couldn't take very many things with them, but one of the few things that they took were their manuscripts of books that ended up being published. And I just think, and I'm glad they did. So now we have Curious George. Originally it was he was in another book, but I think the original book was printed in 1940, and they've never been out of print. And he's been in several languages, and he's even had several different names other than George. Actually, in England, I think he was named Zozo. In France, he was Fifi, and then in England, they named him Zozo because they didn't want to name him George because that was the name of the king, and they thought the king might be insulted, which I think is kind of hilarious. So, but anyway, are you ready to get started? Margaret and H.A. Ray's Merry Christmas, Curious George, written by Kathy Hapka, illustrated in the style of H.A. Ray and Mary O'Keefe Young, by Mary O'Keefe Young. So it's a different illustrator. One thing you might find interesting is the Rays, the husband, grew up near a zoo, and so he was inspired by animals, and his wife liked to travel. So I think that's one reason why they had animals in all their books. This is George. He lived with his friend, the man in a yellow hat. He was a good little monkey and always very curious. Today, George was visiting, what do you think he's at? A Christmas tree farm. You can help me pick out the perfect tree for our home, his friend told him. Keep close to me while we look. George promised to be good, but little monkeys sometimes forget. The Christmas tree farm had more trees than George had ever seen. He found a very nice one right away, and then another one caught his eye, and then another, and then another. George was curious. How many Christmas trees could there be? George could not resist climbing up the tallest tree to get a better view. He looked for the man with the yellow hat, but his friend was nowhere in sight. Two men tromped into the clearing. There's our tree, one man told the other, and the men cut down the tree and loaded it into a truck. Along with George! George held on tightly. He saw the man with the yellow hat as his truck drove away, but the truck was going too fast, and George could not jump off. He was scared, but still a little curious. Do you see him running after him? Soon the truck stopped in front of a hospital. George peeked out of the branches as the men carried the tree inside. The hospital was a busy place. George jumped out of the tree. There was lots to see and do, and he looked at some interesting pictures. Are those pictures? Can you see that? He found a jacket and tried it on. Whose jacket is that? Is that the doctor's jacket? He played on a trampoline. Is that a trampoline? Oh my. He even went for a ride on a speedy little cart. What fun. Oh, George. Then George spotted something very interesting. His tree. George knew that Christmas trees were supposed to have tinsel and twinkling lights and shiny ornaments, but this tree was empty. George thought and thought, and then he had an idea. What did he do to that tree? Do you see all the stuff he decorated it with? Oh no. Next, George noticed a pile of gifts in the corner of the room. The gifts looked pretty, but George was curious. Could he make them look even prettier? This red bow would look much better on the green box, and the name tags might look nicer if on different packages too. A nurse arrived, and what did she see? A monkey, and he's making a big mess. Does she look very happy? I don't think so. A group of children crowded around the nurse. They were all patients at the hospital. Even though it was almost Christmas, the children were not smiling or looking happy. Come along, the nurse said, picking George up. I'd better get you out of here before you ruin anything else. A girl with a cast stared at George's tree, and suddenly she giggled. Look, she said, it's my X-ray. A boy laughed, and there's the balloon from my room. All the children started chattering and laughing as they looked at George's funny decorations. Can't he stay for the party? A boy asked the nurse. We don't mind about the gifts. It'll be fun to sort them out. Please let him stay, please. The other children chimed in. When she saw how happy the children looked, the nurse looked happier too. I suppose he can stay, she said, if he promises to help fix the tree. George was happy to help. The children helped too. Some of them returned George's decorations while others handed George the real ornaments. He scampered up and down, stringing lights and hanging tinsel. Being a monkey, he was good at that sort of thing. He was also good at making the children laugh. Difficult page there. There we go. When the tree was finished, George helped open the gifts. He was having such a good time, he completely forgot that he was lost. Until the man with the yellow hat hurried into the room. There you are, George, he cried. I followed that truck all the way here. George was very happy to be reunited with his friend. The nurse invited them both to stay for milk and cookies. Ho, ho, ho! Did someone mention milk and cookies? A man in a red suit walked into the room. His belly was jiggling. He was holding a beautiful golden star. George's eyes widened. It was Santa Claus. Who would like to put the star on top of the tree? Santa asked. George! The children cried out all at once. Let George do it. George scurried up the tree one last time. He put the golden star in place carefully. Merry Christmas, Curious George. He had a pretty exciting day, didn't he? The end. I hope you liked that story. If you've not read Curious George's stories before, I bet you can find some at your library or your local bookstore. And if you want to, there's a really great website, thecuriousgeorge.com, and there's a lot of fun activities and stuff for parents to, do some things, and it's a good little resource to check out. I hope you're so excited and have enjoyed these books. We're starting to get closer and closer to Christmas. I'm so excited. Okay, I wonder what tomorrow's story is going to be. I'll see you next time.